Children, this is a story about the golden goose. Once upon a time, there was a couple with three sons. While the two elder sons were pampered, nobody loved the youngest, who was called a fool. One day, the father asked the eldest son to gather some firewood from the forest. On the way, the eldest son met an old dwarf who asked him for some food. The young man shouted loudly to drive him away. While he was cutting down a tree, the axe slipped from his hand and hurt his arm, and he could not carry the firewood home. The next day, the second son went to collect the firewood. He met a hungry man who asked him for food, but the second son shouted and drove him away. While he was cutting down a tree, the axe slipped from his hand and hurt his leg. When the youngest son, whom everyone called fool, saw that his brothers were hurt, he volunteered to go to get the firewood. On his way, Fool met an old man who asked him for food. The young man said, I don't have any good food, but if you don't mind, you are welcome to share what I have. Both enjoyed the meal. Since you are a kind young man, I will give you a reward, said the old man. Cut down that tree, you will find something. The young man did so and was surprised to find a beautiful goose with bright golden feathers all over. He picked up the goose and began to go back home. He decided to spend the night in a nearby barn. The farmer who owned the barn had three daughters. Each of them wanted one of the goose's golden feathers. So they tiptoed to the barn while the youngest son was sleeping. When the elder sister tried to pull out a feather from the golden goose, her hand suddenly stuck to the goose's body. When the second daughter tried, her hand also got stuck. And when their younger sister tried to help them, her hand too got stuck. The next day, the young man, whom nobody loved, picked up the golden goose and continued his journey towards home. He took no notice of the three girls still stuck to the goose. On the way, a priest walked past and scolded the girls. But when he pulled the last girl's hand, his own hand got stuck. While they were all walking into the village, his friend saw the priest and called out to him. But when he ran after the priest to pull him away, his hand also got stuck. Meanwhile, Fool led the line through a field where two farmers were tilling the soil. The priest shouted for help. Both the farmers ran to help, but they also got stuck, making the line even longer. All seven of them followed the fool into the town. The king of the town had a beautiful but sad daughter who had not laughed even once in a whole life. The king was worried. He announced that he would marry the princess to any man who would make her laugh. When Fool heard the announcement, he dashed into the palace. As soon as the prince saw the fool with the golden goose and the long line of people behind him, she started giggling. When Fool began laughing with the princess, the line was broken. Fool had won the right to marry the princess, but since he was just a poor woodcutter, the king was displeased and came up with a trick. I will keep my promise if you can find someone who could eat all the bread in the pile as high as a mountain in a single day. Fool returned to the old man for help. The old man said, all the bread in the palace is still not enough. Delighted Fool took him to the bakery house. The old man ate up all the bread in a pile that was high that was as high as a mountain. Fool asked the king to keep his promise, but instead the king said, "You may certainly marry my daughter if you can find a ship that can move on land and also sail in the sea." Fool went to the old man once again, and the old man agreed to help him. The old man made a ship with sails to sail in the sea and fastened the wheels to move on the land. Finally, the king realized how able Fool was. Soon, Fool was married to the princess and became the new king of the town.